Number 2, 2.1, consider the following numeric number sequence. So we've got a number sequence here of 2, -8, -18. And the first question is that we should determine the constant difference of the above sequence. Now we are going to apply the sort of formal way of determining what the constant difference is. I will again just say, if I go from 2 to -8 and from -8 to -18, what happens? So how do I get from 2 to -8? Well, I would need to subtract 10. And from -8 to -18, I would need to subtract 10. Okay, so let's just see how we could work that out by using the rule of saying, well, let's test for this constant difference. Let's say that if I take T2 and I subtract T1, in other words, if I can just go and label the terms here again, that's term 1, term 2, and term 3. So what is term 2 minus term 1? Well, that is -8 minus 2. And again, use your calculator and you'll find that it's -10, because a lot of you, if you do this without a calculator and you do it in your head, confidently thinking that you're doing the right thing, you get different and incorrect answers. So just check with the calculator. So I will say -8 minus 2 and I get -10. Okay, so that is simple. Then I'm not done. I need to just check. Let's say I can't see that the difference is -10. I can't see it immediately. So I need to check and I need to test. So I need to compare what happens if I take term 3 and subtract term 2. Well, term 3 is -18 and term 2 is -8. But that is not how I would do it, because this is actually incorrect, because it is term 3 minus term 2. Now, term 2 is -8, so it is -18 minus -8. And -18 minus -8, what does that look like? So I say -18 minus, in brackets, I'll say -8. And my answer is -10. Because if I had said -18 minus 8, I would get a different answer, and that would throw you out completely. Okay, so now I can see that my difference here is constant, so I can say, therefore, my constant difference is -10. So that is the answer to 2.1.1. 2.1.2, determine the general rule for the sequence. In other words, determine Tn, determine the nth term. Right, so we know from our previous examples that we will simply use T1, which in this case is 2, and we will multiply our constant difference of -10 with the position of 2, which is the first position, and say -10 times 1 is -10, which of course is not equal to 2. So what do I do to get to 2? What can I do to -10 to make it equal to 2? And I can then play around the calculator with the numbers, and if you're good with your integers and adding and subtracting integers, you can immediately say, well, that means I need to add 12, and I would get to 2. If you can't do that, then you say, okay, I've got -10 and I'm multiplying it by 1. That gives me -10, but that's not equal to 2. So what must I do to this answer to get to 2? And you can play around and say, okay, maybe if I add 9, no. Okay, so then you say, okay, if I say -10 plus 11 is 1, okay, and then so no. But if I say -10 plus 12, okay, it's 12. Now, of course, I'm just making a silly example here, but that is more or less what a lot of you do. So I'm just showing it here, so you can play around with which number must you add to this to make it equal. In other words, to make that number sentence true. So it is plus 12. And again, if we look at repeating this for term 2. Term 2 is negative 8, and that we will then look at multiplying our constant difference with the position. And negative 10 times 2 is negative 20. And if I add, so we're already expecting this to work. So if I add 12 to negative 20, so negative 20 plus 12 gives me negative 8, which is the second term. So it works. And I'm going to do it once more for the third term. So term 3 is equal to negative 18. And I'll take my constant difference of 10 multiplied by the position, which is that 3. And I know that if I add 12, it will work. Let's see once more. So negative 10 times 3 is negative 30. If I add 12, I'll get negative 18. So it works. So that means that if I take Tn, I take negative 10, I multiply it by n, and I add 12. That will be my rule to get any term. Of course, just remember, you don't have to do it for all 3 terms. You can just do it with the first one to get what needs to happen, and then you can go straight from doing it here, and you can go all the way and just conclude that your general term will look like that.